Here's a rundown of what we played in March. What's up, Brew Crew? Welcome back to Beer City Board Games. I'm Clay, and I just realized that it's been a while since I've done a monthly recap video. I'd put them on pause for a bit while I was finishing up my Top 100 series, but now that that series is done, I'm excited to get them started up again because I really like making these as a way to reflect on some of the things that we've done and games that we've played. As usual, I won't be able to talk about every game we played over the month of March, so I'll mainly be touching on the highlights, so let's get going. I'm going to start right off with the behemoth that is Oathsworn into the Deepwood. We're about halfway through our campaign of this one. This game has pretty much dominated our Tuesday night gaming sessions and will probably continue to do so for a while yet. I don't want to spoil anything, but so I'm not going to go into too much detail on the game, but if you are not familiar with Oathsworn into the Deepwood, it is a dark fantasy campaign game with different chapters that are split up into a story portion and a boss battle. One of the reasons that this game is taking us a bit longer to get through is because we split each chapter up and do the story portion one night and the boss battle the following week. Otherwise, these sessions tend to go a little bit longer than we're able to commit to on a weeknight. Aside from the chapter lengths, though, I've really been enjoying this game. The story has been really interesting so far, although I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface on some deeper happenings in the game. I would say that I prefer the story to the battles, but the battles are very good too. Each boss that you face has something really different and some really devastating abilities that makes for some interesting challenges to overcome. My friend Matt, who owns the game, has been painting the boss figures as we go, so each fight there's an amazing reveal where we get to see who or what we're going to be fighting. It's been incredibly epic so far. We played a new version of an old classic, Caylus 1303. I've been seeing a lot about Caylus since I first got into board gaming, but I had never had a chance to play it. The original came out back in 2005, but this updated and streamlined version was released in 2019. Now, this is a pretty straightforward worker placement-ish game where you'll gather resources along the road and add new buildings that can be used to gather even more resources. But you've got to watch out because not every worker placement spot might activate that round. You and your opponents will be manipulating the movements of a provost marker, moving them forward or backward along the road. Any worker placement spot that is farther down the road than the provost marker does not get to activate that round, which can really screw players over. And typically, this style of game, we don't really care for that type of negative player interaction, but I will say that knowing that going into this game ahead of time, I didn't end up minding it as much as I thought I would. I actually think I would play this one again. We tried out a co-op from the king of co-ops, Matt Leacock. Pandemic was such a big part of my early journey into board games, and we also like some of the Forbidden series of games like Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert. So I'm usually interested in playing games that Mr. Leacock has designed. I only have a super hazy recollection of the old Thunderbirds TV show. I seem to remember the opening sequence of the show at least, but anyway, I had heard some very good things about the Thunderbirds Cooperative board game, so I was excited to check it out, and I'd say that it did not disappoint. Like a lot of Matt Leacock's designs, Thunderbirds is a tight logistical puzzle where you are constantly trying to get the right agent and the right vehicle in the right place at the right time. Each agent and vehicle has their own special ability and are especially well suited for certain types of missions. New rescue missions pop up each round and need to be dealt with before time runs out. And these missions take place all over the world as well as in the inner solar system, which can be tough enough, but you also have to stop the hood from reaching any of the 3 scheme cards. If they get to a scheme card before you can deal with it, game over. We lost our play of this one, but I like co-ops that are challenging, and it's the type of co-op where you can kind of see what went wrong. So I'd say if you like Matt Leacock's other designs, you should definitely try this one out if you have a chance. We played another game of Rumble Nation this month. Now, this is a quick and easy to teach area control game with a sneaky amount of strategy involved. You'll be rolling 3 dice, adding up 2 of them to determine which region you'll be placing the cubes into, and the 3rd die will tell you how many cubes you can place in that region. When the game is over, the player with the most cubes in a region scores its points. One of the cool twists about this one, though, is that the winner in each region can then send cubes out to each adjacent region. So if you can plan it out right and get the dice rolls you'd need, you can end up cascading victories across the map. Another great decision in the game is that once during the entire game, you can use one of a handful of tactic cards that will let you do something completely different to manipulate the board state. Now, typically, I prefer more choices in a game, but because this one plays so quickly, I feel like this one choice gives just the right amount of tension, especially since you're all choosing from the same set of cards. So you want to wait for just the right time to use the card, but if you wait too long, someone else might claim it before you have a chance. I'd highly recommend Rumble Nation as an entryway to the area control genre. Our friends taught us Kung Fu Zoo, which is a really cute and really fun dice flicking game. Players take on the roles of different animals, which are represented by some really cool custom 6-sided dice. This game can be played in 2 different ways. A cage battle, which is essentially a last animal standing fight to the finish, and a points battle, where you score points based on your position of your animals at the end of each round. You'll be trying to be the first to score 21 points. Now, we only played the cage battle, which to me sounds like the most fun way to play this game. You flick your dice off the edge of the arena and try to knock your opponents into one of the 4 holes in the corners. Each type of animal has its own special ability as well, which I didn't get to use very often in any of the games that we happen to play, but I think it's a nice touch. Plus, each side of the animal dice represents different sides of the animal: face, back, sides, feet, and butt. If your animal ends up with its feet in the air, it's considered stunned and can't be flicked again until it gets flipped off of its back. If your animal lands face up, you can flick it from anywhere along the edge of the arena. Any other side, you have to flick it from the center of any edge. This is a super addictive dexterity game that we played multiple times in a row. I'm not sure how well this one did in stores, but I'd love to see it come back and be available again, and maybe add a bunch more animals with new abilities. Speaking of games that we played multiple times in a row, we got Hansa Teutonica played back-to-back in March. This is a quick-playing classic Euro game where you are trying to build up a network across the map to establish trading posts in different cities. Some cities will give you additional points or allow you to level up one of your skills on your player board, which in turn will make you more efficient or allow you to score additional points at the end of the game, either by fully leveling up a skill or by increasing the amount of points that you'll get for each city in your longest network of connected cities. This is an older game from 2009 that got a big box release back in 2020. And while this game itself has done pretty well, it seems to me that games like this don't tend to get as much buzz anymore. They tend to get overshadowed by bigger, flashier games with boatloads of content and more components than you can shake a bag of cubes at. But there's always going to be a place in my collection for elegant, thinky games like this. But I'm curious what you all think. Do simple, elegant games get the coverage they deserve? Or do we tend to see more discussion about the bigger and more complex games that are on the way? We got in a play of Oak from Game Brewer last month, which is a game that I was super excited about. I loved the druid theme, and I also love the fact that you could accessorize your druids with different pieces that would give them a new ability or make them better at certain tasks. At its heart, this is a worker placement game where you will play a card alongside placing a worker, and depending on the card played, where the worker was placed, and what resources you spent, you'll be able to take some sort of benefit. This game definitely has a lot of things going for it. I liked the fact that you could upgrade your druids. I liked the way that passing works in this game, where whenever you pass, you can use passive druids to collect ingredients from the forest to brew potions that will help you out in different ways. I liked that you had to manage between your active druids that could be sent to the worker placement spaces and your passive druids that would collect the ingredients or move up the different tracks on the oak tree in the center of the board, giving you more resources or possibly giving you more points if you could make it all the way to the end of a track. One of my favorite things were the artifacts, which gave you your own personal and pretty powerful worker placement spot. But each time you use it, you would rotate it, causing it to be worth less and less points. This sort of gave me vibes of the old game Queen's Architect, if anyone has played that game. Unfortunately, where this game fell down for me was the rulebook. I tend to be pretty forgiving of a lot of things in games, and this was not even close to the worst rulebook that I've ever read. But here's where my problem lies. I'm all for explaining a game using the theme for context, but if you don't make the rules clear, then all of that theme is useless. I felt like too much time was spent providing fluffy thematic descriptions that the rules themselves were not made as clear as they should have been. On top of that, some of the graphic choices in the rulebook made it pretty difficult for me to see what they were referencing. I will end by saying that I do think that this is a very good game. And now that I've played it, I'm excited to play it again without the struggles of the first play. But you never want your players to have to struggle when trying to learn a new game, or they might just not. We played a game of Demon Worker, which is a really interesting and super fast worker placement game where players are rulers of the underworld. You start off with just a couple of human minions who are pretty useless, but as you build up an engine of more efficient monsters and demons, you'll be able to do more and more on your turn. You'll use those workers to gather resources, which you spend to fulfill evil plans for evil points. This is a really bizarre theme, and even though the gameplay is very fast, you still get a pretty good sense of progression as you become more and more efficient with each new demon worker you gain. I would say that I wish this game was just a smidge longer. It felt like it was over so fast, and I wanted to be able to run my demon engine a little bit more. But that didn't hurt my enjoyment of the game, and I'm interested in getting it played again soon. And the last game I'm going to talk about for the month of March is Bandido. This is a game that I've played a bunch of solo on BGA and on the table, and this was our first time playing this game as a multiplayer co-op. This is a very tricky game where you're trying to cut off all of the tunnels that the prisoner is trying to use to escape. You'll have a hand of 3 cards, and each turn you'll lay down a card connecting tunnels to tunnels and dirt to dirt. You can block an escape route by adding a dead end, which are pretty limited, or you can play down cards that create tunnels that loop back on each other and lead nowhere. I think this game feels much more difficult as a multiplayer game because it really limits the information you have. In a solo game, you see all of the cards that are drawn, so you can make better decisions. In a multiplayer game, you don't know who has what cards, and so it makes it much more difficult to know which card is best to play at any given time. It's still possible to win, but definitely more difficult. I would highly recommend this one as a small box solo game, though, although it's definitely a bit of a table hog as well. All right, everyone, those are some of our gaming highlights from the month of March. Let me know down below what games have made it to your table recently, which were your favorites, and are there any I should check out? And until next time, let's get another round for the table.